get notified whenever Hayden upload a new video. Thank you so much. Enjoy the episode. Where's my friend Hanako at? Hanako! If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of violence or despair, reach out. Help is available. Stay safe and stay connected. Welcome to Criminal Files, where we dive into the most infamous crimes, conspiracies, and criminal mysteries in history. I'm your host, Teke Teke. Today's case is about 5 grade Arizona girls arrested for plotting to harm a classmate and making it seem like he did. It's October 1st, 2024. In Surprise, Arizona, a place that lives up to its name, but not in the way you'd hope. This isn't the kind of surprise you want. Legacy Traditional School, West Surprise Campus, is the kind of school you'd drive by without a second thought. Beige, stucco buildings, flagpoles with the Arizona and U.S. flags, and a fenced playground with neat patches of grass. You might imagine spelling bees, science fairs, recess chatter, but inside those beige walls, on that early fall afternoon, something was brewing. Not a fight, not a prank, something darker. 4 girls, all in the 5th grade, all between 10 and 11 years old, were putting together a plan. A plan to lure a male classmate into a school bathroom, attack him, and then stage the scene so it looked like he had fallen. Let that sink in for a moment. This is not a scene from a crime drama. This isn't the plot of a cautionary short film shown in a health class. This is a real-life criminal case involving children who, at that age, should be worrying about multiplication tables and weekend sleepovers, and yet, the details of the roles they assigned, the precautions they discussed, suggest something else entirely. Something intentional. Over the next hour, we're going to dissect what became known as the bathroom plot. We'll walk through how it started, the one overheard phrase that unraveled it, the police investigation, and the aftermath that unfolded months later when the story became public in June 2025. We'll also stop at key moments to explore the theories, not the wild internet speculation, but grounded, evidence-based possibilities about how and why something like this could happen in the first place. The setting and the players. Before we get into the events of October 1st, let's set the stage. Legacy Traditional School is part of a network of charter schools in Arizona and Nevada, known for its structured, traditional approach uniforms, strict schedules, and high academic expectations. This isn't a free roam type of campus. Teachers and staff maintain order. Students are accounted for. That's why what happened here was so shocking. If you were to line up every 5th grader in the school and ask which ones would be capable of plotting violence, most people wouldn't even consider the possibility. They'd say, they're just kids. But according to the police reports and later media coverage, 4 girls, let's call them Student A, Student B, Student C, and Student D, crossed that line. These girls weren't strangers to each other. They were classmates, connected socially, and at least one had a personal grievance with the intended victim, a boy we'll refer to only as the target. The target was, according to his family, autistic. They've said publicly that he struggles with certain social interactions, but is gentle, smart, and loves video games. He wasn't the kind of kid who typically got in fight, but somewhere along the way, conflict began brewing between him and at least one of the girls. The motive, as reported, what could drive a 10 or 11-year-old to think about UA a classmate? Police reports suggest the motive, or at least the spark, was rooted in playground romance drama. At least one of the girls believed the boy had cheated on her. In the world of 5th graders, dating often means sharing snacks, sitting next to each other at lunch, maybe passing notes in class, but feelings can still be intense, and in this case, those feelings turned to anger. From there, it escalated, and here's where it gets difficult to wrap your mind around. This wasn't a single outburst. This was a plan. Planning the crime. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office would later outline the alleged plan in detail. One girl would bring the weapon, specifically a dinner thing from home. One girl would be stationed as a lookout at the bathroom entrance to warn if anyone was coming. One girl would be the one to carry out the job. One girl would write the note to make it appear as though the boy had fallen. They even discussed wearing gloves to avoid leaving DNA. A level of detail that raises serious questions about where they learned these methods. This wasn't said in the heat of the moment. It was mapped out. The moment everything changed. In every criminal case, there's often a single turning point where the plan falls apart. For the bathroom plot, it was a phrase overheard by another student. Just him. It wasn't whispered quietly enough. The student who overheard it didn't know exactly what it meant, but they knew it wasn't a normal recess argument. That student told a parent, and that parent did exactly what you'd hope. They contacted the school immediately. The school's emergency response. The reaction from the school was swift. The girls were pulled from their classes and kept separate. Parents were called. Law enforcement was contacted, and deputies from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office arrived at the campus. The deputies began by interviewing each girl individually. With their parents present, they searched backpacks. While no thing was found that day, the consistency of the stories and the level of detail left little doubt that the plan had been discussed. Seriously. By the end of the school day, the 4 girls were under arrest. The immediate legal outcome. Because of their ages, none of the girls could be charged as adults. In Arizona, children this young are typically handled in juvenile court. The charges were misdemeanor counts of threatening and disorderly conduct. After being booked, they were released to their parents. All 4 were suspended, and the school began the process of considering expulsion. The investigation unfolds. Law enforcement takes over. Once the call came in from the concerned parent, everything shifted from school discipline to a criminal investigation. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office doesn't take threats lightly, especially in the wake of national attention on school safety. Deputies were dispatched immediately to Legacy Traditional School. By the time they arrived, school administrators had already separated the 4 girls. They were in different rooms, away from other students, with staff members present. This separation was critical. Once law enforcement arrived, it meant each girl's account could be recorded without the influence of the others. The first interviews. Deputies started the process carefully. Each interview was conducted with a parent or guardian present, as required by law for minors. The interviews began with general questions: how the day was going, and what they had for lunch, before moving into the core subject, whether they had discussed doing something bad to another student. Reports indicate that the girls were surprisingly open. While not every detail was immediately admitted, enough was shared to paint a coherent picture. There was a discussion about UA. The boy. Roles had been assigned. A weapon had been considered. A fake note was part of the plan. 3 of the girls expressed some degree of remorse during questioning. Their voices reportedly shook. Some cried. But according to law enforcement, 1 girl did not. She allegedly smiled during questioning, gave casual answers, and made excuses, behavior that stood out to the deputies. Searching for the weapon. One of the first steps in any case involving a threat of violence is to search for the means to carry it out. Deputies searched the girls' backpacks. No knife was found that day. That could mean a number of things. The weapon was never actually brought to school. The plan was still in the preparatory stage. Or, in a more chilling possibility, the plan had been delayed until the weapon could be smuggled in. Without the physical weapon present, prosecutors faced a different kind of case, one based on conspiracy and threats rather than attempted attack. The boy at the center of it all. While the girls were being questioned, the target was removed from his usual schedule. He was kept in a safe area with staff until his parents could arrive. When his family was told what had been overheard and what had allegedly been planned, they were shocked. According to later interviews, they struggled to believe that kids his own age could imagine, let alone attempt, something so deliberate. The boy, autistic and sensitive to stress, was deeply shaken. His family has said that he still deals with anxiety related to being around peers at school. The arrest process. After the interviews, deputies made the decision. The girls would be taken into custody. Because of their ages, the arrest process was not the same as for adults. There were no handcuffs in front of peers, no public pourboire, but they were still formally processed, their names recorded, charges filed, parents notified in writing. The official charges were misdemeanor, threatening, and disorderly conduct. Each was released to their parents the same day, but their futures at the school were immediately in question. Behind closed doors, the parent meetings. After the arrests, the school scheduled meetings with each family involved. These meetings were tense, according to those with knowledge of the situation. For the parents of the accused, it was a moment of disbelief. Some defended their daughters as having been caught up in the situation, insisting they never would have gone through with it. Others expressed remorse and apologized privately to the victim's family. For the victim's parents, it was raw anger. They felt the plan was clear, intentional, and dangerous, whether or not the girls had the means to carry it out. The role of the juvenile system. Once the case entered the juvenile system, the focus shifted from punishment to prevention. Juvenile courts in Arizona are designed to address the underlying issues, whether that's emotional regulation, family problems, or exposure to harmful influences. The outcome for these girls would eventually involve diversion programs, educational and counseling sessions meant to prevent reoffending. But in the public's eyes, the fact that they were back home within hours of being arrested felt insufficient. From closed case to public outcry. The case lays quiet October 2024, June 2025. For nearly 8 months after the October 2024 incident, the case barely made a ripple outside the immediate school community. Within Legacy Traditional School, the matter was handled with deliberate privacy. The 4 girls were suspended. The victim's family was working through the trauma in private. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office processed the charges within the juvenile system, which by law is shielded from public record in many respects. The school likely issued internal safety reminders, but there were no press conferences, no headlines. For all the students who weren't directly aware of what happened, it was just another year in the life of their school. Then came June 2025, and the quiet ended. The police report surfaces. It started with a public records request. Journalists had learned of a serious incident at the school involving multiple students. When the request for the police report was approved, the details hit newsrooms like a shockwave. Inside the report was the complete breakdown of the plot. The assigned roles: weapon carrier, lookout, attacker, and the note writer. The discussion of gloves to hide fingerprints. The overheard phrase, just him. Even without names, because they were minors, the story was explosive. National coverage begins. On June 25, 2025, the New York Post ran the headline, 4 5th-grade girls devise sinister plot to UA. The boy fake his fall. Cops. Within hours, outlets like People, Law, Crime, and Crime Online had their own versions. The tone varied, some focused on the chilling nature of the plan, others on the ages of those involved. Talk shows began discussing it. Radio segments ran phone-ins where parents debated whether children this young could truly be dangerous, or if they were just acting out a fantasy gone too far. In online forums, the debate took on another layer. Was this the failure of the school, the parents, or both? The public reaction, the public response was intense and divided. Some commenters demanded harsher charges, insisting that the girls' ages should not shield them from serious legal consequences. Others stressed rehabilitation, warning that punitive measures could permanently damage children who might still be reachable with the right intervention. In Arizona, the incident reignited debates about school threat assessment protocols. How seriously should every overheard conversation be taken? And what are the best steps once a credible threat is identified? The August 2025 Family Statement. By August 4th, 2025, the victim's family had decided to speak publicly. In an interview with AZ Family, they described their ongoing frustration. They said their son, who is autistic, was still dealing with anxiety and emotional trauma from the incident. They believed the juvenile system's resolution, which included diversion programs and apology letters from the girls, was not enough. One detail stood out. The family had yet to receive any of the apology letters. Months after the resolution, they also expressed concern about how quickly the girls were allowed back into public life after the arrests, saying it made them question whether the school and legal system truly prioritized their son's safety. What the diversion programs meant. Juvenile diversion programs in Arizona are designed to prevent future offenses. They typically involve counseling and therapy sessions, educational modules on consequences and empathy, community service, written apologies to victims. Completion can lead to the case being closed without a formal juvenile record, a second chance. But to the victim's family, the lack of closure from the promised apologies left the outcome feeling hollow. Why the story broke in June 2025. So if this all happened in October 2024, why did the public hear about it months later, in June 2025? That's when the police report became public. Media outlets obtained it and began reporting on the details, the roles assigned to each girl. The plan to fake the fall note, the gloves. The story went national. People were shocked, outraged, and desperate for answers. Minds of youth, impulsivity, premeditation, and the aftermath. Understanding the child mind in crime. When adults hear about children plotting something as serious as attack, it's natural to ask, did they really know what they were doing? Child psychology tells us the answer isn't simple. Between ages 10 and 11, children are at a critical developmental stage. Their brains are rapidly growing, especially in areas related to impulse control, judgment, and empathy. On one hand, by this age, kids understand that death is permanent. They recognize right and wrong. But on the other hand, their ability to foresee long-term consequences, especially emotional and legal, is limited compared to adults. Impulsivity versus premeditation. In criminal law, the difference between impulsive and premeditated action is huge. Impulsivity means acting on the spur of the moment, without forethought. Premeditation means thinking about the act in advance, planning it out. What makes the bathroom plot so unsettling is the clear evidence of premeditation. Roles assigned, tools discussed, cover-up measures like gloves, and the note. That's not an impulsive playground spat. It's a cold, calculated plan. But there's a twist. Even with premeditation, kids this age might still lack full awareness of the emotional devastation their actions could cause. They may see it as a game or an extreme way to solve a problem, not fully grasping the moral gravity. The role of media and environment. Experts suggest that the girls' knowledge of things like gloves and fake fall notes likely came from exposure to media, television, crime dramas, movies, or online videos. While many children consume media responsibly, some pick up dangerous ideas without adult guidance. The way media often portrays crime can make it seem like a series of moves or steps, and without conversation about the real-life pain and consequences, these ideas can take root in young minds in disturbing ways. Community and school responses after the story broke. After the story became public in June 2025, the school and community had to respond. Legacy Traditional School implemented. Increased supervision during recess and lunch. Training for teachers and staff on identifying early warning signs of violent ideation. counseling resources for all students to discuss conflict resolution and emotional regulation. The community held several public forums, some contentious, where parents and school officials debated how to balance safety with compassion for all students involved. Theory 1. Understanding intent at age 10, 11. Let's step back and ask, did these 4 girls fully understand the consequences of what they were planning? Child development experts say that by ages 10 to 11, most children do understand that death is permanent. But the moral and emotional weight of someone is another matter entirely. There's also a factor known as fantasy thinking. Children can blend real-life decisions with ideas drawn from media, video games, or stories. The gloves, the fake note, these could have been borrowed from crime shows or online videos, without a real grasp of how easily such a plan could unravel, or how devastating the outcome would be. If this theory is correct, we're looking at a dangerous mix. Exposure to violent scenarios in media without enough adult discussion to explain consequences. Underdeveloped emotional regulation in moments of anger or jealousy. Groupthink, when being part of the group becomes more important than questioning what the group is doing. In other words, it's possible these girls intellectually knew what they were planning, but lacked the emotional capacity to process the true horror of it. Theory 2. Group hierarchy, peer influence. Now, let's talk about how group dynamics might have fueled this plan. Psychologists studying juvenile crime often point to a phenomenon called leader-follower dynamics. In groups of children, there's usually 1 or 2 individuals who take on dominant roles, setting the tone, making the plans, deciding what's cool or necessary. In this case, the police report suggests one girl was more detached and less remorseful than the others. It's possible she was the primary instigator, the one who pushed the idea from casual talk into concrete planning. For the others, participation might have been driven by fear of social exclusion if they refused, a desire to seem tough or loyal to the group, the distorted belief that because they were acting together, responsibility was somehow shared or diluted. Groupthink can be powerful, especially among preteens. In such settings, moral hesitation can be overridden by the need to maintain social standing, a factor that has been documented in everything from school bullying to coordinated theft. In this theory, it's not that all 4 girls were equally committed to the idea of violence. It's that the group structure amplified and legitimized the plan until it felt normal inside their circle. Theory 3. The role of school environment. Adult oversight. The third major theory about why this incident progressed as far as it did focuses on the environment both at school and at home. Schools are the primary stage for social dynamics in children's lives. Conflicts, cliques, and shifting loyalties are part of growing up. But when supervision is thin in certain areas, lunchrooms, playgrounds, hallways, moments can slip through the cracks. In this case, the planning allegedly took place during the school day, with enough privacy for the girls to outline detailed roles. That raises questions. Could closer supervision during free time have intercepted the plot earlier? Was there an existing pattern of bullying or conflict that went unaddressed? Were there warning signs, behavior changes, escalating arguments that weren't picked up on by adults? At home, the question becomes, were the girls consuming media or engaging online without enough guidance to understand what was real versus fictional? The inclusion of gloves and a fall note sounds more like something from a scripted crime show than a naturally reoccurring idea in an elementary school setting. If this theory holds, the incident wasn't simply the product of one bad decision, but the result of gaps in adult awareness and intervention, a system that failed to catch a dangerous plan before it solidified. Theory 4. Is this a sign of something broader? Finally, the fourth theory we consider is whether the bathroom plot is a symptom of a larger trend, a cultural shift where children's emotional worlds are increasingly complex, but adult support systems aren't keeping pace. Consider these factors: increasing exposure to violence through media and online content, rising social pressures at younger ages, bullying, peer drama, and even early romantic feelings, stigma around mental health that prevents children from getting help, fragmented family and community support, especially during and after the COVID-19 pandemic disruptions. In this theory, what happened at Legacy Traditional School isn't an isolated freak event, but a warning sign, a call for schools, families, and communities to invest in emotional education and open communication before more kids find themselves in desperate, dangerous places. Justice, prevention, and reflection. Legal outcomes and juvenile proceedings. As the juvenile proceedings wrapped through late 2025, the courts focused on balancing accountability with the girls' young ages and potential for rehabilitation. While none of the four were tried as adults, the consequences were serious. All four entered juvenile diversion programs focused on mental health counseling, conflict resolution, and empathy development. Probation periods of 6 to 12 months were imposed, during which ongoing therapy was mandatory. Written apologies were to be completed and delivered to the victim's family, although the delay in receiving these caused ongoing frustration. Expulsion from Legacy Traditional School was permanent for all four, with placements in alternative educational settings. These outcomes reflect Arizona's juvenile justice system's emphasis on restoration rather than punishment, recognizing the girls' age and circumstances, but still addressing the severity of their planned actions. Expert Opinions Prevention starts early. We spoke with child psychologists, school counselors, and juvenile justice experts who agree on one key point. Prevention has to start well before a crisis forms. Some of their recommendations include proactive social-emotional learning in elementary schools to teach kids empathy, conflict resolution, and emotional regulation. Open communication channels where students feel safe reporting concerning behavior without fear of punishment. Parental education on recognizing early warning signs, changes in mood, withdrawal, or talk of violence. Community programs to support mental health access for children and families. They also emphasize the importance of not sensationalizing these events in the media, which can lead to fear or stigma rather than understanding and action. Reflections: what does this mean for Arizona and beyond? The bathroom plot stands as a stark reminder. Even the youngest among us can struggle with darkness we might not expect. Arizona's schools and communities have taken steps to bolster safety, but the incident reveals cracks in how we address youth, mental health, and violence prevention. For parents, educators, and lawmakers, the challenge is clear. Invest in early, compassionate intervention. Build trusting environments where kids feel heard. Understand the complexity of childhood behavior instead of reducing it to bad kids or troublemakers. Because in cases like this, those labels won't keep anyone safe. Only awareness, empathy, and action will. Closing. Thank you for following this difficult case with me. It's one that challenges how we think about childhood, safety, and responsibility. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of violence or despair, reach out. Help is available. Until next time, stay safe and stay connected.
What criminal case do you want to see next? Comment below. It's Hanako here again. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you, and feel free to share this video with anyone who might enjoy it too. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next video.